Okay, so for residual plots, what we also want to think about are some other things we might see with them. So this is a great question to look at in terms of the scatter plot and which residual plot it might go with. So keep in mind, this is the original data. These are the residuals from that data. So if I look at scatter plot 1, scatter plot 1 looks pretty linear. Scatter plot 2, pretty linear. Scatter plot 4, pretty linear. Scatter plot 3 appears to have a bit of a curve in it. So this one is not linear or curved, so not linear. My stylus is struggling today. Okay, so what we want to think about is no like a linear data has no pattern in the residuals. So we want to identify out of these residual plots which ones appear to have a pattern and which ones appear to not. So this is just a random scattering of points. So this would be no pattern. This is also pretty random, so no pattern. This one definitely has a pattern. This one, we just see that the data is getting more spread out. So probably the original data, like those residuals, are getting bigger the more we go on, which probably means like the actual points are pretty far from my line the more we go on. It's not really a pattern though, it's still just a random scatter. So we now want to match up any residual plot that has a pattern means the original data is not linear. So in this case, plot B has a pattern and scatter plot 3 is not linear. So these two would go together. So if I had the scatter plot, I could describe it as not linear. If I didn't have the scatter plot, only had the residual plot, I could then also go, ooh, that has a pattern. That means the original data is probably not linear. So in this case, scatter plot 3 and residual plot B would probably match up. Now, in terms of the other ones, we just want to see how close our line and our dots are together on our scatter plots. So I'm going to start with this one. This one is probably the strongest. So if we notice, like the residuals, meaning like the space between my points and my line, are pretty tiny because this is a pretty strong pattern. So scatter plot 4 is probably going to go with plot C because these residuals are a lot smaller than ones that we would see here. So these numbers are smaller essentially than where these are plotted. So I would say 4 and C would go together. So then, let me clean some of these up a little bit here. So basically, let's see, what have we eliminated? So we've done this one, matches with this one. C and 4 go together. Now we just want to see 1 and 2 and A and D. So what I see is basically points being pretty close to the line and they get further away, which would generally match the pattern in what we see here in this residual plot D. Basically, these points being closer to the line would result in smaller residuals. These points being further from the line result in larger residuals. So I would say 1 and D go together. And then by default, then 2 and A must go together. But we can also kind of rationalize that because this, again, is a line very clearly. So this has no pattern, but then these points are a little further away from the line than they were in scatter plot 4, meaning the residuals here are a little bit bigger for each point. They're a little further away from that original line. So then 2 and A go together.